On today's episode, we're sitting down with our dads.
Nice.
You're listening to The First Three Knocks, a Masonic podcast in the District of York, where we discuss topics for the betterment of Masonry. The opinions discussed in this podcast are those of the individual and do not represent the views of Grand Lodge or any other Masonic body. Now, here are your hosts.
Well, good morning. Here we are back in Aurora at the temple. We have a very special episode this morning, Gino. Very excited.
I'm nervous, not excited.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
I feel like we're in trouble. We might be in trouble today.
That feeling of sitting in the principal's office, that's how I feel right now.
We have two very special guests with us today on the First Three Knocks. Our daughters are here. So we're very excited to introduce Cassidy Scovio, who is a grade 10 student from Aurora High School, and the daughter of Gino Scovio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And beside me, we have my daughter, Ava Tellier, who is a grade 7 student at Mazo de la Roche Public School in Newmarket. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So we're doing something a little bit different today. We've kind of flipped the script, I guess, so to say. We're going to have the girls ask us some questions about Freemasonry.
I guess that now I know how our guests feel when we call them in, and it's like that great unknown, right? So, yeah, I'm a little bit excited and nervous at the same time. I don't know what these girls got in store for us, but let's find out.
Let's find out. So maybe a couple of questions to you guys to start things off, but what's it like being a daughter of a Freemason? Who would like to answer that question? Over to you, Ava.
I guess it's just like a regular person.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just the same.
Makes sense.
Your dads are out more, though, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's alright. Because, I can watch TV now.
Not around to boss you around, right?
No. I do miss you sometimes, though.
Oh,
that was some nice love
I
there.
paid her for that plug.
Yeah, extra $5 for that. So let's get into a couple of questions here. So I know you guys prepared a couple of things. What's on your mind? What can we help you with as Freemasons?
Okay, so I always wondered if there was a Mason named Mason.
Not in our lodge.
No, not in our lodge. And I don't think I've met one yet, but I'm sure there
Yeah.
has to be. Come on,
Spratty, any in your lodge?
No, not that I know of.
No?
I mean, we could do maybe a quick Facebook search on the groups or something to find one, but
Yeah, I think the closest we've had at the Rising Sun is we had a member who was an actual Mason, and that was his profession, where he
stonemason.
stonemason. That's what he did for a living. But not that I'm aware of any.
I got a nephew named Mason, and he's what, one? Not a Freemason yet.
Maybe he'll be a Freemason someday.
Maybe. You got a question?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Why is it important that Freemasonry is secretive?
Why is it important that
that's a good
Freemasonry
question.
is secretive? All right. Well, you know what? Again, we've talked about this a few times. Obviously, you don't listen to Dad's podcast. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I'm just playing, dear. Is Freemason secretive? Well, it is and it isn't, I would say. We're pretty open and out there in the public these days, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But there are elements that are secretive, and it really pertains to our rituals and stuff that we do. Although, again, I'm sure if you did some searches online, you'd probably find every little bit about it, and hopefully all the good stuff about it, because there's a lot of myths out there. But why would you? How would you answer that, Bert?
I think, well, there's two parts I would say to that question, which is a great question, by the way. First, I think that Masons were extremely secretive in the past. And, we know that because we've had a lot of guests even on the show who've come on and how did you join Freemasonry? Well, my grandfather was a Mason or my uncle, that type of thing. And he wouldn't tell me anything. I didn't know anything. It was impossible to learn what was going on. And that was very much an indication of the times, right? That was the expectation. I say that because that probably drove the culture of Masons being very secretive, because you couldn't even get anything out of your family. In today's day and age, I think that Freemasonry is much more open. as Gino said, out there in the public. I mean, we were just talking with Right Worshipful John Trotter recently, and he was talking about how our square and compass symbols weren't even allowed to be on the buildings in those days.
Yeah. Not only are they on buildings now, but we're on welcome signs in the towns and cities. So, I mean, like, talk about putting us really out there as people drive in and see that there's a group here in Aurora or Newmarket or anywhere else. For that matter.
So I think there's like a generational shift that's happened from it being very secretive to being very open. That's number one. And then two, I would say we do have secrets, but really they're a little bit boring to be blunt about it. I mean, our secrets relate to some modes of recognition, how we recognize each other, and then some of the ritual work that we do, of course, that you need to be a Mason to participate in. Outside of that, there's really nothing so interesting in it. And as Gino said, it is all on the internet. The context of what you're reading on the internet is really the question. Is it true? Is it real? Because a bunch of it is fake and made up. And then two, you need context to understand what actually is being presented there. So we have secrets, but there's nothing.
Yeah. And modern day Freemasonry is 300 years old now. Mm-hmm. And it stemmed back to a couple of the wars, especially World War II. And back then, a lot of, I guess, Masons were kind of like underground, especially in Europe and Germany, because Hitler didn't like them. Mm-hmm. So, again, maybe a lot of the myths of secretive Masons stem from the World War actions that happened out there. Who knows? But like Burt said, it's it has its elements of secrecy, but they're pretty much all out there.
Okay, so I always see you practicing that book that you always read from, and how come you don't fully have it memorized yet?
It's a common question.
Yeah,
huh?
It seems to be my trend. Your mother said the same thing. How come you don't know this yet? I guess I would say that the craft is a very complex piece of work. And as you grow and mature as a Mason, you develop new learning. And so you go back and relearn pieces that you learned previously, and you now understand it in a different way because you're more mature and older and have more experience understanding the meaning, the real meaning of the work. So I suspect I might be alone on this one, but as a Freemason, I'll be studying that book till my last breath on this planet, would be my guess. So I'll be walking around the house with the book for many, many more years, I can tell you that.
I'm going to go out there and say Dad does know the whole book already. But like he said, as we learn new pieces that we kind of help and give back in the ritual, it has a different meaning as we mature and kind of get more into it. We understand different pieces. I know when I first got that book a couple years ago, I was like, what is this?
Language.
What is going on? And really, I would learn the work just to memorize it and deliver it. But now that I've kind of matured through some of the officers' chairs and getting close to what we call the principal officers, man, do I understand the pieces I'm delivering, right? So, again, I think we all know what's in the book. We know how the ritual goes. A lot of it we already know, it's in our mind and memory, but it means different things as we go through the stages. So, yeah, I'm going to echo Burt's comments and say we're always going to be reading that book.
Forever learning.
Forever and ever.
Yeah. Good question.
Okay, so my next question is, why is it only for men?
Why is it only for men? She came with some tough ones.
Ouch.
Huh?
Yeah, I had
Investigative
all right,
journalism
all right.
at its
Wow.
best here, huh?
Well, it is a fraternity. So you guys know what a fraternity is, right?
Yeah.
No.
What is a fraternity?
It's just they have those in college and university, right?
All right. So what is a fraternity is for men only, or boys, men.
Yeah.
We like to call ourselves men, I hope. And then sororities are for girls, right? So I'm going to flip that question before we answer it. Can men join sororities?
Well, this is different, though. It's not like you're living in a house together.
Well,
You're practicing something.
we kind of are in a sense, right? When we deliver our ritual and go through our meetings. But yeah, we are a fraternity. It is a fraternity of men. I think, again, don't quote me 100% on it, but it was established to kind of have men come together, especially after the wars. They went out and fought, and they kind of came back and probably had PTSD or whatever it's called.
I don't think they knew that in those days.
I don't think they knew what it was, but they had common men within their own community that they could kind of understand what they just went through. And so I think that kind of helped seal those bonds and whatnot. And then I guess a lot of our teachings are through ancient Egypt times. And a lot of the things back then were done by the men, right? Mm-hmm. Although I'm going to say, I'm sure the backbone of all the men were those wonderful women at home like they are right now for us. And they just never got the credit. But at the same time, it is a fraternity. We are a tradition of over 300 years, in fact, over thousands of years. And I don't think we like to change much of our traditional ways.
No, it's not a common thing for there to be much change or innovation in Freemasonry. I would say, on a personal note, for me, the fact that it's for men only is not an exclamation point on the fact that there's no women, but it's more an exclamation point on the fact that we are around very like-minded people, and the male experience is very different than the female experience. So what you guys experienced growing up would be very different than what we did growing up, because we are males. So I find, personally, I enjoy being with my brothers in lodge because we have some shared experiences that we draw from, and we have some very similar types of mindset to share as well. It's not to say that we don't love the women in our life, and we're proud of them. We definitely are, but this is just something very personal that we do to enjoy each other's company.
And did you girls know that there are Masonic bodies for women or for men and women together? Did you guys know that?
No.
There you go. So we do have different bodies that have opened the doors to Masonry to women and to young ladies and to young men.
Yeah.
We have the Dimole, which is for young boys. We have the Job's Daughters and the Rainbow Girls, I believe it is, that are a body for young ladies like yourselves. And then as you get older, you could either join with Dad, or you can join on your own, or if one day you decide to get married and your husband's a Mason or whatever the case might be, there's another body called the Eastern Star. And that is a group that meet
Co-ed.
And both
Co-ed.
men and women are in that group. So I haven't joined that yet. I'm trying to talk Mom into it, but she's not ready yet.
Yeah.
So when she will be, we'll figure it out.
A little more
Is it-
pressure from you might help, huh?
Yeah. You
Is
can
it
join
all
with
like
me.
different than what you're learning now,
Is
or
it
is
all-
it the same?
I think there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of the same
Principles.
stories, the same principles, the same foundation of what we're taught in Masonry, right? Masonry is essentially how to take a good man and make him a better man, okay? So all these other bodies share those same principles, right? How can we be better to have a better household and to have a better community, right? And basically help with charity and kind of community events and actions and such. And so all those bodies, that's why I've joined a lot of other bodies, because they're a continuation of the story and the learnings we are learned here. We're taught here. So yeah. So if you girls are ever thinking about it, we have places you guys can think about going to. Yeah, we get that now. No.
Too busy with dance, eh, hun?
Yeah. Okay, so you just said that Masonry is like supposed to make you a better man. So do you think it's done that?
That's a great question. Oh.
Yeah.
Want to take a stab at that?
Sure. I would say definitely. My example would be when I was younger, before I became a Mason. We were living in Calgary back then. I'm sure you don't remember, but Mom and I remember because we took you everywhere in the West. Thought we were giving you these amazing experiences that you don't
3.
remember.
I was 3, Dad.
But at that time, whether it was with family or business, I was a little less able to handle the pressure compared to what I am today. And so Masonry has helped me tremendously in a couple areas. One is leading people, because you have a lot of opportunity to lead in Freemasonry. Communication, big time.
Yeah,
just
huge.
doing the ritual work itself is a huge confidence booster, and the memory work is a discipline of workload that you have to manage. And then I also feel very supported by my brothers now. So I feel like I have a group of people I can rely on, an additional group of people outside my family that I can rely on, that help me through some difficult times, because we all go through difficult time. It's actually designed that way. We're supposed to be challenged.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know that until I joined Freemasonry. Every time I'd face a challenge, I would think like, poor me, how can this be? This isn't fair. And the very egotistical kind of view. But since I've become a Freemasonry, I've learned that is actually by design. And that's the way that we're supposed to be tested, and we're supposed to learn lessons and be able to work our way through difficulty. So I would say for those reasons, I feel like I've become a much better man. Now, having said that, I have a long way to go.
Yeah.
So, just
lot.
like reading the book, the ritual work, I'll be doing that till my last day as well, is trying to become a better man.
I think, again, to echo some of Dad's points there, which were all fantastic, Masonry does give you a little bit of foundation to build on. And for me personally, especially in the last couple of years, every time I'm faced with a challenge, I kind of have a new way of looking at it, and a new way of thinking about it, a new way of approaching it. Whereas maybe in the past I would have been like, who cares? Walk on, flip the bird, it's all good. And then now it's like, well, what would a good Mason do? How would you approach that? Maybe an example that I can give is, there's again a brother that might be in need, and when I first joined, not knowing how to help my fellow men, women in our community, now I have a better understanding of how you would do that. Maybe we forget sometimes somebody's having a bad day, and so we kind of just go about it ignoring him. Now I'll maybe say, hey, are you okay? Everything all right? Mm-hmm. How you doing? What can we do to help each other out? And so that's one of the little things that I've built on. But like Dad said, we got a long way to go. I'm sure Cass can say that I've become a little bit of a better dad, but all the yelling and screaming at home is probably what she remembers most, right? So yeah, it gives us something to work on and build on, but it certainly, I think, does improve us. And if you're not in Masonry for those reasons, you soon discover that it doesn't work for you, and the door is right there.
I'd like to flip that question to you two, because you guys have kind of grown up with us. Like you know us very, very well. What do you guys think? Have we become better men?
I don't really remember before you were a Mason.
This is true. That's true. You don't remember Calgary?
I was 3, Dad. Come on.
What about Disney World? We went to Disney and we were on
You shouldn't have taken me when I was that young.
Yeah,
I don't remember anything.
Some bad decision making back then. Let's be honest.
It's okay.
I think that you seem a little happier because whenever you go to your meetings and stuff, or you like level up, I guess, you're always so excited and you always want to
It's
talk
like a video
about
game,
it.
leveling up.
Level up.
Yeah, you really enjoy it, and I can tell.
Thanks. Yeah, it's so true. I do have some challenges every once in a while, and like I say, I get the blues every once in a while, like we all do. And those blues are really quickly kind of out the mindset and out the back door when I walk in a lodge, whether it's here or visiting anywhere else.
Yeah.
And again, we've said that before, where you just have one of those terrible days, and then all of a sudden you have a meeting to look forward to, and it gets better. Well, we just lost No.
Yeah.
And that was a tough time. And that same night that we had his funeral, we had our podcast recording, and I couldn't have wanted to be in a better place with my brethren to kind of share that. So, yeah, it kind of uplifts you and makes you feel good. So thanks for noticing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. One of the things I wanted to add to that point, that discussion point, is in Freemasonry, you get to be around people who have become better men. And there's so many great examples just in our jurisdiction of York region. There's so many great men that have been doing this a long time, and you get to see them as examples. You get to see them at their best. And for me, the best example of why I love going to lodge is inevitably you'll have a conversation with somebody who's been working on themselves for a long time, who's really pulled themselves together, and you'll be having a bad day and you'll talk to them and you'll realize, oh, they've been through this. It's possible. This isn't a big deal, right? It just requires a little bit of thinking and a little bit of effort, and you have support there. And you get that kind of example from your brothers in lodge. You don't get that example from sitting on the couch watching football. I can tell you that. Like that's what I think has happened to a lot of men, is they've kind of deep dived into their life and sat down on the couch and they're mailing it in. But going to lodge and Freemasonry offers something very different than that, which is you can do better than this. There's an expectation. There's an expectation even that you do better, that you come to lodge and you learn to be better, and you apply yourself and you work. I have a really interesting little story I'll share with you guys related to that. I was going to a workshop a couple years ago in Freemasonry down in Richmond Hill, and there was a brother who was putting on protocol and etiquette piece, which is how to do the ritual. And this brother stood up and he was talking about the junior warden's lecture. Gino, you'll appreciate this because this is your next challenge, right?
Yep.
And the junior warden's lecture is the biggest piece in Masonry. It's the hardest one to learn, or one of the hardest ones. There's others too. But it's really like a big stepping stone in Freemasonry. And so he's explaining how to do it well and how to anchor yourself, just some tips and tricks. And he tells a story of he was going through a difficult time in his life when his wife had become an alcoholic. She had spent all their money. They were broke. They were going bankrupt. And he's going through this difficult time, and he had to deliver the junior warden's lecture. And so he goes to his lodge during this time. So you can imagine the pressure that's on this guy, right? He's dealing with.
What's swirling through his head?
He goes to his practice at his lodge, and he's feeling all this pressure, and he's with some of the more senior brethren, and they're doing a proper practice. And it's time for him to deliver the junior warden's lecture in practice. And he starts off with a story about how tough his life is, what's happening with his wife, and blah blah blah, and the right worshipful who's sitting beside him said, "Yeah, no, that's great, but how's your lecture? How is your lecture coming along?" And he said it really struck him. It took him back even, and his point was this: that no matter what's going on, you have to work your way through difficulty.
Yeah, you still got
work
things to do.
And that story always stuck with me, and I think it's an example of the expectations being involved in Freemasonry.
Yeah, so true.
What happens if you didn't work up? Yeah, if you mess up.
If you forget your stuff.
Yeah,
it happens
all the time.
Happens all the time, more than you think.
What happens if you're not ready?
Well, again, you try to have an expectation of yourself to be able to be ready, right? When I'm asked to do certain pieces in our ritual, in the work that we do, not only am I trying to make it as good as I can, I'm also not only thinking about how I'm going to deliver it and how I'm going to look in front of my brother. And although that doesn't matter, it does. I also think, well, I deserve to give my best so that the candidate can receive his best, right? Because we're taking somebody through the degree work, and I don't think it's fair when kind of somebody mails it in and is not prepared. So the best thing, if you're not prepared, is talk to your master and let him know, hey, I don't have this down yet. But there are a lot of moments in Masonry where, you have a brain fart.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, your piece, and you get up there, and it's happened to me, believe it or not. And you've studied it, you know it in and out, you could say it in your sleep. You get up there, and all of a sudden,
nothing.
Yep, the birds are chirping. So we do have somebody in lodge that is called a prompter, and he can help if we forget a word or two to kind of keep us on track. We can ask for a word, or he'll recognize that we need that help, and he'll spit out a word for us. But on that particular night, I lost everything. And so every single word was given to me. And I felt
What
like...
happens? You just not move on?
You just keep going. No, you just keep going. There, like I said, the prompter, if he has to read the whole piece, and then you just kind of say it after he's reminded you of all the stuff you've missed. So he'll read the whole piece out if it has to go that way. And then you just go sit down and it's all good. And when that happened, I thought, oh my God, the brethren here, they're going to be really upset with me. They weren't. Right? Talk about, again, being there to support each other. I had almost everybody come up to me that night and say, hey, it's happened to the best of us.
Oh, yeah.
I had, again, it was actually in the Royal Archmasons.
Yep.
I was asked to deliver a piece, and we had, I guess, the equivalent of our DDGM there. And I thought, oh my God.
The pressure.
And so at the end of the meeting, he came up to speak a few words, and he, I'm pretty sure, picked this story to share because of the blunder that I gave. That he said, you know what? Don't worry when you do mess up, because you'll have another opportunity to fix it. And we've all been there, and we've all done it, and it's all good. And then the second lodge was done. I went outside, and I was able to spit it out
Perfectly,
no problem.
yeah.
So it just, you get into that brain fart, you get into missing a couple words or something, and all of a sudden it just falls apart. But Masonry teaches you, again, just because you got it once, it's like any sport. You're in dance, you're a cheerleader, right? Do you practice your routine once and say, yeah, we're good? No, you practice it over and over. And even when you've almost perfected it, you're still practicing it, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we do the same thing. And if you mess up, what happens? Do you stop the show? Nope. You probably do a little sidestep and pretend like it's in the routine and keep going, right?
Yeah.
And that's how, what happens when you drop a flyer in cheer.
You just pick it up
You
and
just
keep going.
pick it up and keep going. Exactly.
What a great lesson.
Yeah.
What a great lesson. I to further that point, I would say that it's almost extra valuable to have that happen, because you now have this experience of, boy, I really messed that up. Why did that happen? Now you're starting to examine how to make that better, right? So I can recite this in the car, cold,
Yep.
which is what we often do. I mean, I do. That's
Yeah.
my office. In the car, I've got it cold, and then when I stand up in lodge, it's like, oh, wait a second, there's a whole bunch of people here now, and there's a bunch of furniture in front of me, and it's a very different vibe. So the point is, you could practice in lodge, right? So you have a little better cue to prepare for it, just like you would with cheerleading, or like you do with dance. When you guys make mistakes, you just keep going, and then you have this memory now of, okay, that didn't work out so good. How could we avoid that in the future? You don't get to have that experience by being perfect on the first try.
Yeah. And as much as Masonry strives to be perfect, none of us are.
Mm-mm.
There's always a little bit more rough spot that we need a bit of polishing on. We got a lot of Masons, and myself was one. I can't speak for you, but I can only imagine probably have the same experience, maybe Steve as well. You come in for the first time, and you might be given your first piece of work, and that's part of the ritual you've gone through to memorize some pieces, and you're a nervous Nelly up there when you have to talk in front of everybody. And then you fast forward 3 years or 2 years or a year, and all of a sudden that nervous Nelly, we can't shut them up. and they're so comfortable, and it's, we talked about how do you kind of know you're becoming better and whatnot. That's another example of it, right? Each step allows you to be more confident to speak in front of others, and so it also kind of helps with public speaking.
Yeah. Okay, so since you're always at work, how do you make time for Masonry?
That's a good one. How do you make time?
Did your mother give you that question? Yeah, I do travel a lot for work. It takes me away from home, as you know, a lot. But I think that it's part of the test and the challenge is to see how you can appropriate your time properly. And this is very much what Freemasonry is all about, is apportioning your time.
24-inch gauge.
Yeah, the 24-inch gauge, which is how to use the 24 hours you have in a day. So one of my key priorities, my number one priority, is you guys, our family. And the way that I help the family is by bringing income into the family. And the way that I do that is by traveling and generating business across North America. So that is my big priority. It doesn't leave a lot of time for Masonry. And you probably know this year, Ava, more than any year, being the master of the Rising Sun Lodge, has been more time consuming than I've ever had in my Masonic career. So it's required me to be a lot more organized with my time. I mean, I'm working on stuff 6, 7, 8 months out, by week, by day, because I don't have the luxury anymore of winging it. You know, I have to be really well thought out and well planned with my time. So it takes a lot of time away from home, but I feel like that's my contribution to the family, is to help the family by protecting the family with revenue and income. And Freemasonry is my personal thing that allows me to stay connected spiritually and with my brethren. So I just have to be a little more organized to do that.
Nice. So again, I'm part of a lot of other bodies, not just this lodge. And outside of work that I try to do, Masonry and all those bodies teach us that it's family first, work second, and Masonry third. Okay? So just like Dad pointed out, he takes care of the things that are the most important first before he can come into lodge and sort out all that time. When you join other bodies, you know, right now Dad's here on the first Thursday and maybe the third Thursday when we have another special meeting that talks about the meeting we're going to have. And every once in a while we have an emergency meeting. And so it quickly gets away from once a month to 2 or 3 times a month. Add a couple more other bodies that you're a part of, and I'm out sometimes 3, 4, 5 nights. However, I also do real estate, and often my clients are out. So you prioritize, right? You prioritize what's important, and like Burt said, work calls, I'll go that. I do keep our Rising Sun Lodge meetings kind of circled, and that's kind of, as much as all the other bodies are equally important, that's the one that I try not to step aside from, because again, I'm being counted on to deliver and to help and to assist and to grow within that lodge. But it can be very time consuming. We have to have supportive families at home, supportive wives, supported others, supportive daughters, sons, whatever, you know, parents. Because they're all somewhat affected. Get involved with sometimes where you're invited to a family function, and it might be all the way in Pickering, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, do we want to go to Pickering or do we want to go to a lodge meeting? Well, let's go to a lodge meeting. It's closer. But sometimes those events are very important, and lodge has to be set aside. So, but yeah, that was a great question too.
Yeah, great question. One follow-up I'd add to it, from traveling, being away a lot from you guys, it makes the time that I am with you guys very special, right? It makes me think of ways to make it more special, or to be more, just even more attentive and with you, as opposed to, again, sitting down on the couch watching football games, right? Like I want to spend time with you guys when I'm home. So it just is an opportunity.
You're lucky.
You're laughing.
I'm laughing because she's looking at me right now going, yeah, you don't do that,
You like football.
However, let's clear the record here. When you get into your teenage years, you don't even want to hang out with Dad anymore. How many
It's
times?
not that I don't want to hang out with you. It's that, like, I'm just tired. I just need to sleep.
Whoa,
So,
that's good.
Was it last weekend we had the sign that you made?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cute. So Cass had a couple of real big projects at school and studying and whatnot, and she was all stressed out. And again, Masonry has taught us, well, just prioritize what you got to do. Mom helped you study and kind of make points and whatnot. And then we got to Saturday morning.
I was finally done with it, and I was exhausted.
We got to Saturday morning. I got up early to go do my mentoring with the fellas here. And even when she's sleeping, I always go give her a kiss in the morning. She doesn't know it half the time. And there's a sign hanging from her door. Please let me sleep in. School is exhausting. I'm tired. And I was like, all right.
That's a good one.
So I kind of chuckled. Me and Mom chuckled. Off we went. And then we got home and you didn't know anything. I think you woke up at 1:30 that day.
Yeah, I had a good sleep, though.
That's
I
good.
needed that.
That's good communication. Yeah, very clear.
She put it out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you get into the teenage years, which are fast approaching, we're not so wanted or needed anymore. Dad, what are you doing? we don't have the same opportunities to embarrass you. So take advantage when you can.
yeah,
you know?
You have 6 months left.
Yeah, 6 months of embarrassment. You're right. I better step up my game. You need to be a little more embarrassed.
I'll pull up and pick Cassidy up from school, and I roll down the window. And I yell, "Uber for Cassidy here!" And she just
It's
gives
not
me the.
even funny though.
It's bad dad jokes.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That's our job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any more questions, ladies?
I have 2, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, why did you start masonry?
Oh. Well, again, if you remember when we lived in Calgary, no, that's right, you don't. We went to a place called Heritage Park. I didn't know anything about Freemasonry. My grandfather was a Freemason, your great-grandfather. I didn't even really know that. But I had seen the signs and symbols on buildings, and I always wondered what goes on in those buildings. What is that all about, that organization? And we went to a place in Calgary called Heritage Park, which is an old Western town, which is really cool. And they had a Freemasons lodge above the farrier, I think it was, which is the guy who does all the ironwork type of thing. And so I went up there while Mom stayed with you, I think, and I went and talked to one of the Masons upstairs and learned a little bit more. And I started my journey in Calgary. I started applying. As you may know now, we moved back to Ontario. And so I had to wait, I think, 2 years to become a Mason because I had to live here at that time. Maybe it was a year. I can't remember.
I think, is what they told you.
Yeah, and then I ran into the some gentlemen at the Aurora Street Sale here who were from the Rising Sun Lodge putting on a booth and talking about Freemasonry, and that's how I got started. Truly, Ava, I knew nothing about it, and it's kind of the irony of becoming a Mason is you don't really get to know anything. Nobody can tell you too much other than it's a fraternal organization for men, and we meet on these days, and some questions you have to answer. But lo and behold, I'm glad I did because it's been an amazing experience, and as I said earlier, I think it's made me a much better person, and hopefully a better dad for you.
For me, it was close to 5 years ago. We just moved to Aurora. Well, I'll be a Mason this March coming, so 2020 in March, I'll be 5 years a Mason. And so it was about 4.5 years ago. We just moved here a year earlier. So we've been here for 6 years in Aurora. And right across the street, we have the farmer's market. And Cass being smaller, and although she still likes all the brownies and such that we buy, I would always bribe her with breakfast and brownies, and that would be the only way I could get her out the door. Although, again, when you're younger, you guys kind of get up earlier, and we can do a lot more stuff. So we went to farmer's market in August, and I'd always noticed the building, but really didn't know what it was. And I don't have anybody in my family who are Freemasons, so I don't know anything about it at that particular time. I always thought Freemasons were the Men in Black, the secret society of Men in Black, and if you ever talk about them, all of a sudden you just start to see guys that are dressed in black suits
up
kind of around, and it's like, oh no. And nothing like the Men in Black movie, but just, what are these guys up to? So do you remember the day that we came in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, you loved every second of it, didn't you?
Loved it.
Loved it.
So like Dad's story where he went and saw this place up in Calgary and went upstairs, and I'm sure your 5 minutes was 2 hours probably. My visit here was 2 hours. We walked past this building and I said, Cass, oh my God, it's a Freemasons hall and I want to go in. And she goes, it's a church, Dad. I don't want to go to church. And I said, all right, fine. And all I had was Cass. Normally, Jackie, my wife, would come with me, and even Lexi, but I don't know what they were up to. I think Mom was working. Anyways, so we went and did the farmer's market first, and we had breakfast, and then I said, okay, if I buy you some brownies, can we just go in for 5 minutes? And she said, okay.
Just 5 minutes.
Good
And how long were we?
Like a long.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cass was sitting in the corner, all like,
Asleep.
what's going on? I think I stayed in here for about 2 hours. I was listening to a lady ask Scott Rickman and Bruce Bellows a whole whack of questions. And here I was again going, I'm in a Mason's temple, and it's a secret society. Back to that first question you asked. And these guys are telling us everything that we're asking. What is going on?
Yeah.
So then I asked, well, how do you join? And he said, that's all you had to do. And then I think about 3 months later, your dad and Scott Rickman, who I'm sure you've met before, came. We met for coffee and we chatted a bit more, and that's how I fell into Masonry. And again, I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know the history of it, where they were from, how long they've been. I knew that they were an organization of men. I didn't even know it was actually a fraternity of men or anything like that. So all new, exciting, and I'm very happy to have found this place.
Okay, so do you know anything about the treasure on Oak Island?
No. Snap. Well,
Well.
Gino just became a full Templar, so I think he's probably the most qualified.
So from now on, it's Sir Gino.
Sir Gino.
Sir Gino of Steckley Street. Okay, that's how we're going to go with that one. I don't know. We haven't been shown or shared any secrets of Oak Islands or treasures or the Holy Grail or the Last Covenant or the bloodline of Christ himself. None of that has been shared with us yet.
Yet.
Just leave it at that. No, I'm playing. We don't know anything about anything. They say that Masons or bodies of Masons are here to rule the world. It's so not true. We just rule all the real good stuff.
The good parts.
The good parts.
The good parts.
How many degrees are there?
Oh, wow.
Good question. In Freemasonry, there's 3 degrees. And then there's other bodies like your dad is involved with that are further explanations of those degrees and history that goes behind it. But specific to Freemasonry, or what we would call Blue Lodge or Craft Lodge, there are 3 specific degrees. There's the Entered Apprentice, which would be your new person becoming a Freemason. There's a Fellow Craft, and then there's a Master Mason. And that's the 3. And it's Steve, you're going for your Master Mason soon, I think, huh?
Coming up.
It's not in the books yet, but yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to make some phone calls and get that done there.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit of a long stead there for you, so let's move you along.
I know. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Speaking of the other degrees, so like Bert said, in Craft Lodge there are only 3 degrees, and then depending on what side you travel, we always say we travel, you can go up a York right side or a Scottish right side, and they're, again, continuations of the story of what we're learning. And one side will take you up to the 32nd degree, or actually they call it the 32 degrees. They don't even refer to it 32nd. It's 32 degrees. And then the other side is essentially 10 degrees, but it's equivalent to 32 degrees, the way it's structured. And then there is a Supreme Council, and you can be invited to become a 33rd degree member. But that's an invite only. So, yeah, it just depends on how much you want to dive into it, if you have the time, because it does require a little bit of a commitment. And we take it from there.
What happens once you've reached the highest degree?
Well, again, life's over. You can call it a day, pack it up,
Crawl under the covers.
Yeah. No, so what happens? I would say, so a good example of, you get to the highest degree. So here in Craft Lodge, for me anyways, what happens is you continue to learn and you pass your learnings on to the newer guys that are coming through. So you essentially become, without knowing it, a mentor or a teacher. Really, because again, you see a lot of brand new Masons coming through the doors, going through similar experiences. Everybody has their own experience in their own way, but similar experiences, and you can kind of shed some light on how, they can maybe reflect on things or help them with certain pieces. So although you might reach the height of your levels, there really is, it's almost infinity. You can be a 32nd degree Mason or a Knights Templar, but there's still much more. Again,
there's always much more.
You become a Master Mason and you think, okay, yep, I've got all 3 degrees down and might go through the officers' chairs, but you're always studying. There's always a new book to read. There's always more to be taught. There's more education pieces coming down the pipes. There's, again, many times where you've heard that one thing and it meant nothing to you then, and then all of a sudden, fast forward life a year or 2 later, and that has so much meaning to your today life. So it kind of never really stops.
It never ends.
No.
It never ends. And even to take that a little further in Craft Lodge here in, the 3 degrees, it never ends. The learning continues. Very specifically, as your dad mentioned, he's been a fantastic mentor for a lot of the newer brethren coming in, but that's a new learning for him as well, to be a mentor, right? How to deliver that effectively and help them. And as he's progressing through the chairs now, and I mean, your dad's moving up to junior warden, which is a big role, it'll be another big learning for him, and then another big learning, and it always builds on top of each other. So you take that experience and add it to this experience and add it to that, and then all the work he's done with the Templar side as well now. These are great angles on making yourself better, but it'll never end. There'll always be something else that you didn't know or didn't see or will be privy
We got
to.
some brothers that are well in their 90s in this lodge, and they're not able to attend as much, but they're still learning. They're still delivering. They're still sharing brand new, points that they now understand differently, or share stories of how they did it a little bit differently back in their younger years. So yeah, it's always evolving in that sense, in your own being. It's always growing, but it's the same ritual for the last 300 years. Our first master from 1860s, give or take, in that realm, or 1850s,
66.
did the same work, came through the same way, was just an EA and a fellow craft and a master mason, no differently than the last young man that just came through our door and whatnot. So that's kind of the cool thing about it also. We have a lot of very ancient traditions, but we kind of all share that, and it's worldwide, right?
One of the really cool things I've enjoyed about Freemasonry, even just our lodge, when we go upstairs, you'll see all the pictures of the past masters of the lodge. That's amazing to be part of that group. Look at the people who are on that board, those pictures. They're people who built Aurora.
Yeah.
Like, these are the guys who actually built this town way back when. So to be involved in an organization that is built on the same principles and philosophies that they believed in, it feels pretty special. It feels special to be part of that.
We got Sir William Mulock,
Yeah.
who was a Rising Sun member. And we have,
That's a school. Oh, isn't there a school?
that's a school.
Yeah, Mulock, yeah.
And the street, right?
He was a member of this lodge, of this building that you're in right now.
And we had the Hillarys, the doctors, that are off of the Hillary House on Yonge Street. They were Masons, and a very predominant members of Machel's Corner at the time. Did you know that Aurora was called Machel's Corner? Yep. Once upon a time, this wasn't even Aurora. It was Machel's Corner.
Yeah.
And yeah, they helped build this town, like Dad said. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is fun.
Any other questions, ladies?
My last question is, what happens if you want to leave, and can you get kicked out?
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, you can, right? So sometimes, again, we talked earlier about Masonry and having kind of like certain things in your life at certain times in your life, and every once in a while, and we've had brethren here that are actually really amazing senior members now, that there comes a point where you've gotten into Masonry, and for them there were too many distractions and they couldn't really give their all to it, so they took what we call a demit. So as long as you're in good standing, meaning you've paid your dues and you're not a bad guy in Masonry, although there are not very many bad guys in Masonry because they just don't exist. But you've done your part, you're a good member, you're in good standing, and you say, listen, I just got to take a timeout, and that timeout could be for months, it could be for years. And then if you ever decide to come back, you can come back, and you pick up where you left off. You don't have to start from the very beginning. And you can be kicked out of Masonry.
For bad behavior.
Yeah. Right? Which is why, again, there's
Masonic
not
offenses.
There's not a lot of bad Masons, because we have a standard. We kind of expect people to live to that standard. And it's not just being a bad Mason in lodge. If you're a bad person outside these doors, and we discover that, or it's been found that way, well, obviously we're going to try to help you first improve your ways, and if not, then again, Masonry just might not be for you, and it is what it is, and it happens.
It does happen. Yeah. It's pretty rare though.
Very rare.
It's pretty rare. But there's an expectation and standard, definitely, in the craft. So, good questions. You guys had good questions. You're well prepared.
I think they can take over our show now. We
Yeah.
can have like a few months off, right?
I agree.
Done. All right. So
you got 4
ladies,
episodes due next week.
We're out. Have fun. This is the first 3 knocks. You know.
What's that
It's
email
yeah.
address? Let's hear you do it. The first 3 knocks.
Oh, geez, and I'm not a new Mason anymore. Okay.
Yeah, your dad's been telling us on the show that he's still a new Mason and new to Masonry. And
Being a newer Mason, how else do you put it?
to me, the cutoff is you've been doing it for a year.
Yeah,
Check.
right. This is
Your
true.
rookie year's
I'm
over.
sitting in the office and I'm about to be
Yeah,
elected
Sprott's
junior
not a new
warden.
Mason.
Yeah, this is true. So
It hasn't even been a year for me.
I'm just gonna start saying, being an old fart on the block now. You know.
Well, you are getting crankier, so it kind of makes sense.
He thinks he's like 60. Like,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
old,
Oh yeah.
but you're not that old.
Well, you know, it's the Canadian rounding up. After we got rid of the penny, we round up, right? So I'm 42, so I'm almost 50. What's the problem with that?
You're 42.
Okay, well, I'm almost 50.
Oh, you can round up to 50 though.
Oh yeah. Why? Because I'm 45.
Dad's
Yeah.
closer.
And
All
then
right.
5 rounds up
There you go.
to 10.
Oh, I just lost 2 years, so I'm 40 and Dad's 50. Sweet.
10-year swing.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna forego the secretary's desk today, just because of the timing of how we try to, share the information. But I will give a quick, plug. We've been on a roll of selling our T-shirts, and it's been amazing. So yeah, if you're interested, we do have some links that you could get. There are a limited edition, and there are a handful left, but they're starting to move fast. As far as right now, we've delivered some to the States, across Canada right now, and a few others that are been sold in person. So First 3 Knocks has our first line of T-shirts. You want it because imagine one day they're going to be worth millions.
Have you girls gotten your first 3 knock T-shirts yet?
I didn't think you would like
Christmas-
actually
Christmas
sell
is
them.
coming, man. Come on.
I didn't think they were actually gonna sell.
Oh, burn.
No, you should
What?
make sweaters, make hoodies. I'll wear one of them.
Hoodies.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
got a whole
yeah.
line of stuff
Big
coming, all
sweatshirts.
right?
Big
Yeah.
sweatshirts.
All
Okay.
right, done.
That's the style. Yeah.
So you want a hoodie with the First 3 Knocks and Dad's picture on the back with his
Oh
thumbs up?
yeah, that's a good idea.
Done. Custom wear.
Sure.
Crested,
I'll
Finished.
wear it.
big picture of your face on it. Love it.
Solid.
How do they get the shirts?
How do they get the
They gotta go to
shirts?
the website. Can you spell it out?
I've lost. Oh my God! It's like the ritual. I lost my thought. Can you prompt me there, Brother Sprott?
First 3 knocks.
First 3
The
Knocks.
first 3 knocks.
The first3knocks.com. Actually, we have our own website.
Our new website.
It's got some information of how and what we do, and we have a merch tab that you can click on, and you can order your T-shirt right online, and then one of us will reply back to you with some instructions on how to get it. And if you order online, we send you a nice personal letter that we wrote also, just to thank you for your support. It sounds like, again, you're enjoying what we're doing for you all, and we're just going to keep pounding these out because it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And again, I was worried and stressed out and a little bit nervous about this episode, and just like our guests, the first 5 minutes I was a little uneasy, but we kind of grooved right into it, and you ladies have been
Yeah, you guys were
an
fantastic.
awesome
Thank
addition
you.
to come
Thank
on
you.
out.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Sorry for ripping you out of bed so early this morning,
Yeah.
but there's breakfast in it for you if you like.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the First 3 Knocks. Happy to meet, sorry to part, happy to meet again.